Okay, real quick, Mike, I want to talk about Dr. K and
Yes, Dr.
the
Kharrazian.
giveaway that we're giving away.
We are giving away 6 different programs of his, from Hashimoto's disease to gut health, cognitive decline, autoimmunity, and one on saving your brain. We're also offering a 40% discount. You can use the code name Bob and Brad. Everything is down below in the description box. And without further ado, here's Dr. Kharrazian.
Yep.
Welcome, my friends, to the Bob and Brad podcast. My name is Mike Keenitz, and I'm a physical therapist assistant. Our guest today is Dr. Datis Kharrazian. Dr. Kharrazian is a Harvard Medical School trained and award-winning clinical research scientist, academic professor, and world-renowned functional medicine healthcare provider. He develops evidence-based models to treat autoimmune, neurological, and unidentified chronic diseases with non-pharmaceutical applications. His clinical models of evidence-based medicine are used by several academic institutes and thousands of healthcare providers throughout the world. Dr. Kharrazian is an associate clinical professor at the Loma Linda University School of Medicine. So without further ado, here is Dr. Kharrazian. All right, let's get on to the last topic. This one's for Bob. So when should you go gluten-free?
When you react to gluten.
That's a good answer. How do you know if you react to gluten?
You can do a test. You can do a lab test. Okay, so let me get into that. So gluten-free, first, it's like trendy now, and just because people dismiss it as this the new trend, it's not real. It's very, very real. Gluten sensitivity. So first of all, let's talk about a couple of things related to gluten. There is a serious area of investigation in gluten in the world of real researchers looking at answers for chronic inflammation and celiac disease. And one of the first things that they wanted to look into, is a group of researchers did, is they wanted to see, is gluten-free more popular now because it's a trendy mechanism, or is it have our bodies actually changed? So this group of researchers went to Warren Air Force Base, and they got blood samples from soldiers, 10,000 soldiers from 1960. They matched age-controlled, gender-controlled for the same population they could get as close to now. They looked antibodies to gluten back then to now, and there's no comparison. There was a 404-fold increase risk of gluten reactions now than before.
Jeez.
And other similar studies have been done like that, where they can get these other blood samples from years ago and compare them to as close as they can to the population now and see that. So, number one, it's more popular now, so people are being tested. Something's happened, right? So then other researchers go like, what's happened? Why is gluten an issue? What's happening? What's different? So there's a whole bunch of different theories. One of them is gluten is different now. So wheat proteins are different. They're different than, let's say, when you were your kid, like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, right? You had that bowl of Wheaties back then. The bowl of Wheaties you have now are not the same. Okay. So one of the mechanisms is gluten proteins have changed. They changed through two different mechanisms. One mechanism is that they have been wheat strains have been hybridized. So it's not GMO. It's just that they're mixing different strains of grains together so they can avoid weather, they can avoid insects. But the new strains are much more immune and reactive. Immune reactive means the proteins are changed where they can trigger inflammation faster than proteins. And in the immunology literature, they actually use the term native wheat to modern wheat because of the significant change in proteins.
Oh.
Okay, so they're saying that they can actually do protein spectroscopy, see 5% or more protein difference changes. So they use those terms. And there's researchers that have gone to like Middle East and areas of Nazareth and looked at wheat there to modern wheat, totally different protein. Protein triggers, wheat protein. I'm talking about wheat protein. Okay. The other theory that's come up is how we process wheat with pesticides. And there's a concept in immunology called haptenation. That's where a chemical binds to the protein. So when the chemical binds to the protein, it changes the structure of the protein. And there's some theory that pesticides, specifically glyphosate is one of the most commonly used ones, bind to the protein and change the structure, which makes it more immune reactive. And then there are researchers that have published like the rise in celiac disease with the use of glyphosates in farming practices. So I mean, directly linear, like matching each other. You put them on top of each other, superimposed on each other.
Right.
So there's a possibility there's some haptenation, meaning chemicals. Some of the new pesticides are binding to the wheat like never before, changing the protein structure. Hybridization with these proteins are different. But very clearly, without any theory, there are different protein structures to modern versus native wheat. So this new modern wheat is much more inflammatory. Okay, so that's like one difference. And because of that, people that have always eaten bread 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and they get older, they think they can still eat it now. Well, it's not the same wheat. So you might react to modern wheat versus native wheat. Now, another common thing is there's much more native wheat in Europe than there is in the US. So a common thing everyone hears about, it's very common, is like Americans go to Italy and go, hey, I had all the pasta. I didn't feel bad. I felt great. I came here, had a bowl of pasta. I felt awful. And then vice versa. Europeans, when they come to the US, many of them immediately go gluten-free because they feel sick when they eat the wheat here.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I've heard that before. Europe, they don't have organic because everything's organic.
Yeah, they don't
label stuff that way. They don't use like pesticides and things either.
Well, even when they use pesticides, they don't use the severity. Like here in the US, they like soak the fields with pesticides for weeks. Then they use the same fields over and over again. It's just they don't have the same practice of how to use pesticides, even if they do. And then many countries like Japan and I know different European Union countries, they just ban these pesticides altogether. They're not even allowed. So that would explain more of the haptenation mechanism where the chemicals are changing the wheat structure, the pesticides changing the wheat structure. So there is a new wheat. And then the other thing is we have a population of people that do have gluten sensitivity genes that are very common. So there is what are they called gene types. We have different genes, and there's gene types for T cells or immune response, and they're called HLA-DQ gene types. And HLA gene types 2, 6, 1, and 4 all make you at risk for gluten reactions. And about 1 out of 4 people have those gene types.
Oh.
So when you have 1 out of 4 people with these gene type susceptibilities, and now you have a new wheat, you see an explosion of gluten sensitivity. So I think that's part of the reason why you see so much gluten sensitivity now. And why people have noticed, hey, when I get gluten-free, I feel better. My inflammation goes down. I don't feel as bad. Or my kid's ADD completely changes, or whatever the scenarios may be. They're all over. It's every spectrum of disease and conditions because it just causes systemic inflammation. So it's possible that you may want to be gluten-free, especially if you notice you react to gluten. Now, the problem with gluten is it's in many things. So some people go, well, I tried gluten-free diet. I didn't feel any better, any difference. And they didn't really understand like the soy sauce they're using still has gluten in there. The beer they're drinking still has gluten in there. They just think it's bread. They haven't really a gluten-free diet. So that's one reason. The other thing is the laboratory testing for gluten is also limited because when you look at gluten is like a protein. And this protein, think of it as a tree with different tree branches. There's alpha gliadin, there's gamma gliadin, there's deaminated gliadin. You can react to any one of these different gliadins. And in the conventional gastroenterology testing world and what medical labs are conventionally doing, they're only measuring the alpha 17-mer gliadin, which is the most popular one, but some people may have a gamma gliadin reaction and never show up positive for it. So another part of why people don't know they're gluten sensitive is they do testing, but they haven't had the whole spectrum of the proteome, the protein gluten checked. They only had one branch of it checked. So they just and the doctor goes, hey, you don't have gluten sensitivity. We tested it. They're like, no, you didn't test all the branches. You just test one.
Right. Yeah, I would never have known that. I mean, I've heard of people getting, gluten sensitivity tests and they're negative, but then,
This is what I'm saying. It's so frustrating because when you see, like, once you know some information, like from my perspective, people have no chance because they're going to the healthcare field even with full-blown gluten sensitivity, and they're only getting this alpha 17-mer branch checked because that's the most common for celiac disease. But those people don't even have celiac disease. Celiac disease is a different form, more severe form of gluten sensitivity. They have a specific HLA-DQ genotype of 2 and 8, which makes their T cells very, very reactive. Their immune inflammation is very, very reactive to gluten. And that's the difference between gluten sensitivity and celiac disease. It's just how what their gene type is and how they respond to gluten. If it's very, very severe, that's celiac disease. And that's done with a gene test. They do a gene test for that.
Right.
But in reality, a lot of people have reactions with gluten, and the testing sometimes is flawed, and sometimes they just need to go and learn how to do a complete gluten-free diet for a good 10 days to 2 weeks. Usually by the day 3 or 4, they'll feel better if they have reactions to it, and they'll go through it. Now, in the world of food sensitivity testing, the gold standard is not a blood test. It's actually elimination provocation. You eliminate the food and then you provoke yourself. The problem is you have to follow a strict gluten-free diet. And if you're not familiar with it, just look online. There's lots of sources, strict gluten-free diet, and then follow that, and then see if your symptoms go away. And for some people, it's life-changing. That's the key thing. So that's why. So should you go on a gluten-free diet is your question, and the question is, well, if you react to gluten, you should. But if you have a chronic inflammatory condition, autoimmune disease, leaky gut, it's very likely you'll have gluten sensitivity.
Right. And if you're just curious, you just go gluten-free. And if it doesn't bother you, you just did an experiment.
Exactly. But you have to do it strict for a good 3 to 10 days.
Right. That's not that long.
It's not that long.
All right. So where can people find you at on your websites, and where can they get your books?
So my website is Dr. K News, drknews.com, Dr. K News, because my last name is Kharrazian, and that's really hard to spell. So I use Dr. K News. And then I do have free content on that, including a gluten and the brain book. So if there's a free online gluten and brain book, if you want to check that out, if you're listening. And we have lots of podcasts and videos and information trying to educate the public. And the goal of the website is to educate the public and let them eventually know about the books I've written. I've written 2 books, one on the brain, one on the thyroid, and we have some online courses on the brain, thyroid, food sensitivity, food allergies, to try to get information out to people. But hopefully it can be a good educational source for those that are interested in these topics.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. It's a pleasure, and talk to you soon.